Well, I'm available to start at right tackle.
You can't see when I have clothes on.
All right. Well, there's not an even playing field. There's never been an even playing field. There never will be an even playing field.
What shampoo do you use on your hair?
You don't need to be Superman to play in this offense.
You're listening to The Red Zone.
Welcome, Badgers fans, to another episode of The Red Zone. We are here with one of our favorite guests, Jake Kocorowski from Bucky's Fifth Quarter. How you doing, Jake?
Good. Oh, that's so nice of you to say. I appreciate that. Thanks, Jason. No, it's great being on the show as usual, and thanks for having me on.
How was WrestleMania before we get started here?
Oh, man. I won't go too much into it. I actually fell asleep towards the end. It just was so long, but fun. I for those that don't know, I used to train for independent wrestling around the Wisconsin area in college when I went to UW. So it holds a special place in my heart, to say the least. So, so every year I'll watch it, and I still talk to a bunch of guys that are indie wrestlers around the Milwaukee and Green Bay areas too. So regardless, no, it was fun. But it's now that's over with, and now I'm fully dedicated to spring football.
Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was during spring, you tried to tell me and Zach Heilprin that you only tweet about wrestling about once a year. And, it wasn't even true back then, but you really just kind of owned it. And I have. You really just let it out there on Twitter. So it's I appreciate the wrestling tweets from you. I don't really watch it anymore, but I used to be into it.
I've lost followers, I think, from Sunday until today, which is Tuesday. I've lost followers, but you know what? But it is what it is.
Yeah, worth it, right? Worth it. Absolutely. Well, let's get into spring ball then. I guess we'll go ahead and start with what everyone wants to hear about, which is the quarterback position. There hasn't been a whole lot of change throughout the practices that we've seen, but it's been pretty consistent. Jack Coan is getting pretty much all the first team reps. He's kind of dominated most of the reps, and then Graham Mertz, Danny Vandenboom, and Chase Wolf have really been pretty equal with the second team reps. They've been shifting those guys in and out. I think Mertz was the guy that was the second guy in for both team and 7-on-7 reps today. We're recording this on Tuesday after practice, but I mean, even today it was really even again, probably the most even those second team reps have been. But what have kind of been your impressions of the quarterback so far? Do you think Coan is kind of the huge favorite here to win the starting job, or do you think that it's just sort of they're working guys like Mertz in pretty slowly, and this could be different in the fall?
I think it could still be different in the fall, just because right now they're working through, and Paul Chris alluded to it, at the opening press conference, just they're not going to decide a quarterback. You're likely not going to see a quarterback called the starter in this spring. So yeah. That being said, Coan has looked, I would say, he's taken those first team reps. He's had that experience. So that's a huge advantage from last year in starting 4 games, playing in 5. And I think he's looked good too, for that matter, and all quarterbacks have interceptions during the spring. It's how they improve and whatnot. And he's thrown, I think, at least a couple, but really I like what I've seen, I guess, out of him. But with the other quarterbacks, you have, I think it's been pretty equal. And from what I've heard too, and you see it there, Graham Mertz has the tools to be an intriguing quarterback at the college level. In the arm, you and I talked about it during practice, Jason, just about an out. There was a nice out pattern by AJ Abbott, and he hit him in stride, hit him where it should be. And you and I both talked about the arm strength and just the accuracy to get it there. But then, it's also him working through, and, I think that's right after that next play, he had an interception where he hesitated and Duron Harrell came up with a pick. But so, he's still learning the playbook, and you see all the physical tools, but, it's him getting used to the college game, the speed of it, the playbook for Wisconsin. And, but you do see the tools there to make it happen. And Vandenboom, for me, has always looked accurate dating back to last spring. And I think that still holds true. And Chase Wolf's intriguing to me just because he has, I think, probably the best mobility out of everybody in that group. He's got a great arm, but I think he's still, I talked about it in our Bucky's Fifth Quarter article that was published on Monday, just talking about how I feel maybe there's still a little bit more work with him, but then of course he looks solid today in some 7-on-7 work with hitting AJ Taylor deep and then hitting Mike Gregory, over the middle for a deep. It looks like a deep out. So that looked good too for there. So, I mean, it changes. It's still early on, and so I don't want to obviously call or predict a starter, but you do have to acknowledge Coan's got the majority of the first team reps. And I think for the most part, he's taking advantage of them.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you, especially on Mertz. I think that, from what I've seen, and we've only seen, what is it, 3 practices now that have been open to the media. Just my early impressions are that Mertz really does have the talent to be a great player. Now, again, it's only a few practices. And, I think on Saturday, especially when they were doing a little bit more of a full-fledged scrimmage there near the end of practice, you could kind of see him getting a little confused on what play he was running, having to kind of ask the coaching staff coming out of the huddle exactly what was going on. There's still a little bit of that going on with him. So I think he's still, learning, obviously learning the playbook. And like you said, you mentioned the pick to Duron Harrell today. That was just a mistake. He didn't really see him there. And, I think there's going to be some growing pains with that, whether he can, how much of that he can kind of get out of his system in the spring and in fall camp before the season starts. If he ultimately does challenge for the starting job, that kind of remains to be seen. But just from looking at some of the throws he can make, I mean, he's got the arm strength, he's got the accuracy, he's he's got the talent. It's just a matter of kind of working out some of these kinks and learning the playbook, I think. And even though he's sort of on par for rep wise with Danny Vandenboom and Chase Wolf, I think he's definitely the most likely guy to challenge Coan come the fall. And, I just from seeing him for a few practices, and I think he's got a chance to be a very good chance to be the best quarterback here since Russell Wilson. But, whether that happens this year or down the line, I think remains to be seen. So it's going to be interesting to see come fall if Coan still, just kind of keeps that distance and none of those guys really catch up to him, or if someone like Mertz can kind of put things together and start to share those first team reps a little more evenly. I think that if I had to make a prediction right now, I'd say it comes down to either Mertz or Coan in the fall, and it kind of depends on how long it takes for Mertz to kind of get some stuff together. I think a lot of fans want to, and again, a lot of fans want to see Mertz start, but I think Jack Coan has looked outside of a couple, he's had a couple bad picks here and there, but I think he's looked pretty sharp for most of the few practices we've seen. And I think with another good offseason, he's got a chance to improve a lot. And we saw improvement from him the last couple games, against Purdue, and then in the bowl game against Miami, he looked a little bit better than his first couple starts. So I don't think it should be. I don't think this is. I don't think the quarterback play is Mertz or bust or anything like that. I think Jack Coan could absolutely, hold on to this job and do a really good. Do a really good job this year and play better than he did last year and give this team the much improved quarterback play that it needs for the offense to get back on track. But I think kind of moving on to, the defensively, I don't think there hasn't been a whole lot of intrigue defensively. We've kind of known what we're going to see. I mean, they've switched around some of the cornerbacks. For first team reps, they've. I think Leo Chanel has been really impressive as a second team inside linebacker as a true freshman. Noah Burks, being the first team outside linebackers, maybe weren't quite expecting that. But is there anything defensively that maybe intrigues you more than other things, or is there maybe one position group you've got your eye on more than others?
Yeah, it's interesting with the defense, just because, and this is kind of a disclaimer, and I know I'll probably be writing about this, and I think I wrote about it even earlier this week. When you have a lot of the potential returning starters they're healthy on defense, and then you have an offense that's missing Tyler Biadasz, Cole Van Lanen, along with Jason Urban, who was limited for the first couple of weeks until he came back today to get teamwork during half pack. It's along with Danny Davis also being injured at wide receiver, and Jonathan Taylor being limited just because he doesn't need the reps during the spring. Really, it's in my opinion, it's almost hard to really make a lot out of it. Where there's some great interceptions on Saturday during the scrimmages, but then they're also going against a offensive line that's moving around guys. Logan Bruss is at right guard instead of right tackle, where he played the last 3 games of the year. You have Erdman, in and out now, with starting today and whatnot. I feel, like I said, it's kind of hard to really pick out or really like to say, like, oh, this defense is really really stepping up. That being said, they have made some good plays. I think you're right on cornerbacks, where you've seen the shuffling. Like, today is Faion Hicks, Caesar Williams, and then a little sprinkling of Alex Smith in there as well, where more like kind of some slot work, or as a third cornerback, where I think in one of the team periods or 7-on-7 periods, they had him working, Caesar Williams working in the slot. I'm kind of looking at how Jim Leonard, the defensive coordinator, is really mixing and matching with that position group. I think Chanel, to me, that stood out the most. I hate to say it this way, it's because I know it's second team and you never know what's going to happen if he's going to hit the freshman wall down the road. But I think he might be the talk of the camp so far, with just his play early on as an early enrollee, mid-year enrollee, already working with the twos from what it looks like with Mike Mascalunas and that at inside linebacker. And, we already knew his strength coming in to Wisconsin, but the fact that Garrett Groshek told some of the reporters on Saturday he's already barking out calls is a sign that he's willing to learn and continue to grow, for which he's at the Mike inside linebacker spot. That's going to be huge. I think, for growth. And I think he could become a contributor like Jack Sanborn was last year at the position if he continues the progression. You never know what happens between now and obviously August 30th in Tampa against South Florida. But I think maybe the other I was trying to look at the defensive line, and Garrett Rand's still out for the most part. You and I saw him today just doing some work on the sideline and still rehabbing back from that Achilles injury. So really, it's I guess with the defense, it's I would probably say cornerback, just to see what type of combinations they have with the depth there, but even safety. And that's where you have Eric Burrell, Scott Nelson, but then Reggie Pearson had 2 interceptions on Saturday, and then on top of that, Houston transfer Colin Wilder, I think, has looked pretty good as well. And they've been interchanging at that position group too. Sometimes you'll see Wilder and Nelson, or Pearson, and I think I've seen Pearson and Nelson too. So it's also just different combinations in between, and that's one thing maybe with the defense too. You've seen Jim Leonard. You and I were talking about it too, Jason, during practice today. It looks like the first team defensive line and inside and outside linebackers. Well, they may have the quote unquote third string cornerbacks or defense, safeties in there along those guys. So Jim Leonard what I'm taking from it, he's just mixing and matching and getting guys comfortable playing with each other. And I think that's big for them. I think it's big for the defense to get, obviously get reps with each other, but also grow comfortable if injuries come up, next man up, and you have to get going and step up.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. We can't take a whole lot from this sometimes when you mention all the guys missing offensively, because I think we probably should put out the annual reminder that this is spring practice, and there's a lot of things where we try to take what we can from it, but a lot of things, there's, like you said, there's a lot of guys missing. There's guys doing different things than they would normally do because they're just trying to prove in certain areas, and so we got to be careful with evaluating too closely with sort of what's happening here. But we still I think it's still worthwhile to kind of look at some of this stuff and cover it and things like that. But the offensive line is something we haven't really talked about this spring much. At least I haven't written about it much, just because so many guys are out. But it is interesting to see how how few their numbers are. I think they only had 11 guys dressed today. They've had Cormac Sampson and Aaron Vopel, 2 guys who weren't offensive linemen until maybe a couple months ago. Really, those are your second team tackles, and we've got Biotic, Mayan Lannon, and Jason Erdman was out for team reps until just today, like you mentioned. Do you think? Is this a positive for the offensive line? You think that they're having a lot of these young guys take reps, or do you worry about the depth a little bit, that what this could look like if you get an injury or two, or or even if you have, a right side of the line like Logan Bruss, and let's say you have Logan Bruss and Caden Lyles as your guys on the right side of the line. There's a lot of potential with two guys like that, but for those guys to not really have the experience, should there be a little bit more concern with the offensive line than maybe we have led on this offseason? Not necessarily because of what's happened in the spring, but just when you think about how the guys they have to replace, some of the youth they may have to start.
I'm not at the concerned level yet. I think it's if you look back on past spring balls too, you've had guys like John Dietz and Michael Dieter out at times, and that's been allowed. Others like a Tyler Biadish, if I'm not mistaken, or other guys allow to take more reps and kind of grow and expand upon these reps are during spring ball really are developmental, where you slow down the playbook, you slow down, you can work on technique and fundamentals. You have a practice on Tuesday, you have that Wednesday time for a meeting period, potentially kind of work out any problems, any concerns that the coaches have, and you just basically clean stuff up. And then next Thursday, that Thursday practice, how they have it set up for Wisconsin, you can go back out there and go to the next thing, or just show that what you've learned and how you've adapted, and then go to the next drill, to go to the next piece and next part of your foundation to build upon. So I'm not necessarily too worried yet. I think this is critical in terms of reps for this group. I don't think Van Lanen or Biadish necessarily needed that many reps. I know Cole Van Lanen was one of the highest rated tackles according to Pro Football Focus for those that are into that statistic or that website in terms of what their evaluations are. But Biadish obviously too is one of the best rated in that category, and was exploring going to the NFL draft. I think this allows one to get more depth at center. So we saw Caden Lyles today, and we've seen him for most of camp with the first team center. But then also, you saw Jason Erdman get some snaps at center too. And Paul Chryst alluded to that back during the first press conference right before spring ball started, saying, they wanted to get some reps at that position. So you have at least three guys ready. And then Alex Fenton's been the reserve center for that matter. So you have depth there. I think it's a big camp for maybe a guy like David Moorman to step up. And he's been he's going to enter his redshirt senior year. He's been working at left tackle. And in that, and he was listed at the depth chart at number 2 behind Michael Dieter in the game notes for the 2018 Pinstripe Bowl. So he has versatility on the line, but this is an opportunity for him to show what he can do and step up in his final year at Wisconsin. So I'm not necessarily concerned. It's more, I think these are needed reps for this line, and this will help these guys. Josh Seltzner, who could potentially step up now, if guys like Lyles or Erdman go down, and depending on what happens with Bruss, if he stays at right tackle, or if once we talk to Joe Rudolph later this month, I'm going to ask him about Bruss. Is it just because to get Tyler Beach more reps at right tackle, which is good for the Grafton native from Port Washington High School? Yeah, I think is it more for Beach getting more reps at tackle, or is it good also to get Bruss some cross positional training on the inside and trying to explore if he could actually make bump inside like one Bo Benchwall did his redshirt freshman year. So I think it's good for everybody. I'm not concerned yet. Now, if injuries hit the line, with Biadish and Van Lanen during fall camp, that's when maybe you kind of raise an eyebrow and say, this will be interesting. But right now, I'm not too worried.
Yeah, I think they will be a good line, and I think they have a lot of young talent there. I just maybe think I think maybe we should be a little cautious with just assuming that a guy like Caden Lyles will just step in there and be awesome right away, or if you do get an injury at tackle, that David Moorman Absolutely. Or Tyler Beach will just step in there and not have any issues. So I think they will be a good line, but it is difficult to replace 3 NFL guys plus one other starter and John Dietzen, and so I think it's I think it's something to watch as we go into the fall. Maybe take a look at some of these guys. When we get a chance to look at these guys a little more closely, like Lyles and the backup tackles, I just think it's something to watch. So that'll be interesting to see once we get a little better look when the line is healthier in the fall. One last thing, who do you think is going to end up starting at corner? Because that's something that's just kind of impossible to tell right now. They they switch those guys in and out a lot. The last couple of days, it's been Faion Hicks and Caesar Williams as the first-team guys. The one thing I've been surprised about is that Rashad Wildgoose has really not taken, from what I can tell, not really taken any first-team reps during the open practices to the media. He hasn't gotten as many reps as I would anticipate after he started so many games last season. And I don't know if they're just limiting his reps for some reason. We haven't had a chance to talk to Jim Leonard yet about it, so maybe that'll give us a little more clarity. But I think there's probably just a lot of guys too that are fighting for these spots. And we've seen more guys take slot reps as well. We've seen Alex Smith and Faion Hicks take some of those slot reps when last season it was pretty much just Wildgoose and Madison Coan. So I don't know what are kind of your impressions of sort of those cornerbacks right now? Do you have any sense of which two are going to actually be starters when we get to August?
Yeah, no, I think it's still too early. It's one of those things where, last season, Caesar Williams and Faion Hicks stood out at the end of fall camp when we, at this time we had, even with Dante Carrier-Williams out, I don't know, my front runners at this time in 2018 were Carrier-Williams and then also Madison Coan based on their experience and playing during the 2017 season, having the most experience. But you see guys like, Caesar Williams and Faion Hicks become more consistent over fall camp last year, and they wound up earning the starting nod, and now Carrier-Williams is playing for Vanderbilt after a year in JUCO. So it really, I'm still keeping an open mind to this. I think having that experience, you had 6 players that recorded at least one start, and that included even a guy like Dante Burton, who started against Purdue, but then still earned a red shirt after not, or kept his red shirt there to allow him to be a redshirt freshman in 2019 because he only played in 4 games. I think there's still a lot of mix and matching they can do in figuring out. I do like Hicks and I do like Williams. Hicks in particular, from what it looks like, has the ability to work in the slot and also has that ability to be an outside corner, and I think this could be a big spring for him growing. Duron Harrell's still in the mix. I think today we saw one combination with both him and Wildgoose in there as like kind of the quote unquote second team corners for a time being. But yeah, I think they're still mixing and matching. Madison Coan also has not practiced for the practices that have been open to the media, so that's someone else to take into account, where he's a veteran presence and going to be a junior heading into, his 3rd year in the program too. So I'm not necessarily too, I would say maybe you could say front runners with Williams and Hicks and how they've played. But then again, you have so many, you have Harrell, you got Wildgoose. I do wonder if he'll start seeing more reps down the road, and it'll be something that we'll likely ask Leonard when we speak with him later this month as well. So it's still something to watch. It's still, it's just early in week 3, and it could be something too where, maybe the guys need more reps too, as well. So we'll see. Like I said, I'm not too worried right now. It'll be interesting to see just with the talent they have, and then along with the talent they're getting in fall camp with the 2019 signees with, Samar Melvin, James Williams out of South Florida, along with, Dean Ingram. That I think that group's going to be really strong, and that competition should continue to make them a strength of the defense. Yeah, definitely more depth at that position than we've seen from the Badgers in I don't know how long. But that'll be interesting to watch as we get closer to fall. Well, Jake, I think we hit on a lot of the interesting topics of spring so far. We'll have more Red Zone podcasts in the coming weeks with some other guys and kind of as things develop. I don't know how much things are going to develop between now and April 26th or whenever this ends. But we're going to be back with a few more podcasts to kind of talk about some more positions and take you guys through it. Thanks for joining me, Jake. You can follow him on Twitter at JakeCocoB5Q, and Coco is KOCO. Is that correct? You betcha. And follow me on Twitter at Jason_Galloway. Of course, keep visiting madison.com for all your Badgers football news, and subscribe to the Red Zone if you haven't already on iTunes and Google Play. Thanks for listening.